Welcome to Mr. History's podcast. Today we're diving deep into a pivotal moment. Early American history. George Washington's decision to stay neutral in the war between France and Great Britain.
Yeah, it's 1793. You've just fought a war for independence.
Right.
And suddenly the folks who helped you win are at odds with a global superpower.
Talk about a diplomatic tightrope walk.
Yeah, what's fascinating is the depth of this dilemma. The U.S. owed France a huge debt, literally and figuratively, for their support during the American Revolution. The 1778 Treaty of Alliance wasn't just ink on paper.
Right.
It represented a bond forged in the fight for freedom.
Right. But at the same time, wasn't Great Britain vital to the new nation's economy?
Absolutely. Cutting off trade with them would have been disastrous, potentially crippling the U.S. before it could even stand on its own 2 feet. It wasn't just about economics either. The U.S. was already showing signs of the two-party system that would come to define it.
Divided we stand, even back then.
In a way, yes. The Federalists, with figures like Alexander Hamilton, leaned towards Great Britain. They were wary of the radical turn the French Revolution had taken. Meanwhile, the Democratic Republicans, led by folks like Thomas Jefferson, felt a strong sense of solidarity with the French and their revolutionary cause.
So internally, the nation is split, and externally, they're caught between a rock and a hard place. What happens next? Who throws the first wrench into this already volatile situation?
It wouldn't be a good historical drama without a larger-than-life character, right? Enter Citizen Jeunet.
Okay, this Genet character has piqued my interest. Give us the rundown.
Edmond Charles Genet was a French ambassador sent to the U.S. to drum up support for the war effort. Now, Genet was nothing if not enthusiastic. Some might even say reckless. He started commissioning privateers. That is, privately owned ships given government permission to seize enemy vessels, his target. British ships in American waters.
Wow, talk about adding fuel to the fire. He wasn't making Washington's already impossible situation any easier, was he?
Not at all. Washington was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Honoring the treaty with France meant risking a full-blown war with Great Britain, a terrifying prospect for a newly independent nation. But on the other hand, declaring neutrality could be seen as a betrayal of an ally, further dividing the already fractured American public.
So what did Washington do? It sounds like he was in a no-win situation.
On April 22nd, 1793, he made a decision that would shape American foreign policy for over a century. He issued the Proclamation of Neutrality. And this wasn't just about staying out of one war. It was about establishing a fundamental principle for the young nation, avoiding entanglement in foreign conflicts.
That's a bold move for a brand new nation trying to find its place on the world stage. How did people react?
Oh, it was a powder keg. Ignited a firestorm of debate. The Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton, rallied behind Washington. Writing as pacifist, Hamilton argued that the president had the authority to make decisions regarding foreign policy. It was a question of executive power, of who had the right to guide the nation's international relations.
And of course, there was pushback. What did the opposition, folks like Madison, have to say about that?
James Madison, writing under the pen name Helvidius, countered with a powerful argument of his own. He claimed that the Constitution gave the power to declare war.
Right.
And therefore the power to declare neutrality to Congress alone. So it wasn't simply a disagreement over policy, it was a fundamental debate about the very structure of American governance.
So you have this fascinating dynamic where a single decision throws into question the balance of power within the U.S. government. What did the everyday American think about all of this?
Well, what's fascinating is that public opinion ultimately sided with Washington. Despite the controversy, most people understood the need for caution. The U.S. was simply too fragile, too new, to risk being dragged into a major war.
So Washington takes a stand, sparks a national debate about the very foundations of American governance, and ultimately, public opinion sides with his decision to remain neutral. What about Citizen Jeunet? He couldn't have been happy about any of this.
Not in the slightest. Remember his enthusiasm for the French cause.
Right.
Genet was so sure of the American people's support for France that he completely misjudged the situation. In a move that can only be described as incredibly audacious, he issued Washington an ultimatum. Either call Congress into session to discuss further support for France, or he, Genet, would bypass the president entirely and appeal directly to the American people.
Wow. That takes some serious guts or maybe just a complete lack of awareness. How did that go over?
About as well as you'd expect. It was a step too far, even for those who initially sympathized with France.
Yeah.
Even Thomas Jefferson, a staunch supporter of the French Revolution and a critic of the Proclamation of Neutrality, recognized that Genet had overplayed his hand and distanced himself from the ambassador.
So Genet goes from being a diplomatic representative to persona non grata, even among his allies. What happened to him?
He was recalled to France in disgrace. A new regime had taken power, and they weren't big fans of his methods. He was declared a criminal and faced certain arrest if he returned. Talk about a fall from grace.
It's ironic. A man who championed revolution finds himself on the wrong side of one. What happened to him next? Did he return to France and face the music?
This is where we see a different side of Washington, a testament to his character. Despite everything, despite Genet's blatant disregard for diplomatic protocol, Washington offered him asylum in the United States.
Wow, talk about taking the high road. He could have easily sent Genet packing, back to an uncertain fate.
It sounds like Washington was a man of principle, but also a man of compassion.
Exactly. He understood that sometimes leadership means making the tough calls, but it also means showing mercy, even to those who have wronged you.
It's amazing how this one event, Genet's mission to the U.S., reveals so much about the early days of American leadership.
Yeah.
But it also makes you think, how much did the Proclamation of Neutrality shape the future of the United States? Was it really as impactful as it seems? It's a question worth considering. The proclamation set a precedent for American foreign policy that would last for generations. It laid the groundwork for what became known as American isolationism, the idea that the U.S. should avoid entangling alliances
Right.
and focus on its own interests.
And that had huge implications, right?
Right.
Not just in terms of steering clear of European conflicts, but also in how the U.S. interacted with the rest of the world.
Exactly. Think about it. A young nation, surrounded by vast unexplored territories, needed time to grow and define itself.
Yeah.
Neutrality wasn't just about avoiding war. It was about buying time for the U.S. to solidify its own identity
Right.
and pursue its own destiny.
Mhm.
Some argue that this period of neutrality allowed the U.S. to focus on westward expansion, shaping the nation we know today.
It's fascinating how a decision made in the earliest days of the Republic could have such a profound and lasting impact.
Yeah, it really highlights how pivotal these early years were. Washington wasn't just leading a nation. He was forging a path for a nation that was still defining itself on the world stage.
All while navigating intense political divisions at home. It's a testament to Washington's leadership that he was able to make such a bold decision, a decision that shaped the future of American foreign policy for generations to come.
It's a reminder that history isn't just a collection of dates and names.
Right.
It's about choices made by real people, often with imperfect information and under immense pressure. The Proclamation of Neutrality is a perfect example, a seemingly simple decision with incredibly complex and far-reaching consequences.
It makes you wonder, knowing what we know now about how global politics unfolded, did Washington make the right call? Was neutrality the best course for the U.S.?
That's the beauty of history. We get to look back and ask these questions, analyze the choices made, and their ripple effects. It's a conversation that continues to resonate today.
And a conversation I hope our listeners will continue as well. Dig into those primary sources, Washington's letters, the text of the proclamation itself. You can practically feel the weight of history in those words.
There's always more to uncover, more to learn, and that's what makes history so captivating.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the Proclamation of Neutrality. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. History for more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world. See you next time.